Hello, welcome to Undisputed Boxing. We're back after a couple of weeks. I'm fresh from dry Jan, last day. Got my cup of tea. I'm here with Rick. We're here to catch up on some boxing news. Big news announced
You
last week. Actually,
January?
yeah, I did try Jan, yeah. I made it. I made it. Had a couple of drinks on New Year's Eve. Like December was pretty heavy. But yeah, I made it. But we're not in full lockdown in Singapore, so we can kind of go about our lives, and I can still go to the gym and stuff like that. So I think if you're active and you're going to the gym, I think that's a good way to kind of keep out of the fridge for beers and whiskey and whatnot. But you didn't do dry Jan, did you?
Hell no. I mean, I have done it in the past. I've probably done three dry Jans in my life. A lot of it was marathon training, and so it's easy because you're doing it for a reason and you're doing a lot of running. Drink. But yeah, no, not this year.
Understandable. All right, so we didn't do one last week. We were going to do a quick video on, it was news kind of breaking or circulating that Ryan Garcia is fighting Manny Pacquiao in the summer. So yeah, I mean, we can get started with that. There's plenty of other news stuff that we can get into, but what was your sort of first reaction to that Ryan Garcia versus Manny Pacquiao?
Well, firstly, is it official?
Well, here's the thing. It seems to be like they've announced it on Twitter, but I don't think there's a date yet, but it's almost like the fight is signed. And it's almost like they're trying to gauge the level of interest to see, what kind of numbers it's going to do. It's a little bit like they announced Mayweather versus Jake Paul, didn't they? Was it Jake Paul or Logan Paul? Logan Paul. They announced that, didn't they? That was supposed to be in March or February. I think it was March. They announced that this is the date, this is where it's going to be, and then a few weeks later, and then it's been cancelled. And it's obviously because there was a lot of uproar or just lack of interest. So it smells to me like that's what they're doing a little bit with Ryan Garcia versus Manny Pacquiao, is just to kind of announce it, agree a deal in principle, see what the level of interest is. And then, yeah. But it looks like that's the route that they're heading anyway.
Has Pacman announced it? Has it just been Garcia? Because I've only seen Garcia on Twitter say it.
I don't know. I'll be guessing, to be honest. But Ryan Garcia has announced it seems, or his team have announced it, and then Manny Pacquiao hasn't denied it. I don't think they've come back and said no, we've not agreed anything yet. So it looks. I mean, I've seen posters for it as well, so it looks pretty legit. But I think Manny Pacquiao as well has also been. He hasn't been stripped of his title. His WBA title, but he's now champion in recess, and they've elevated Yildirim Usyk, the Cuban, to the super world champion. So yeah, I don't know what that's going to do, and I don't even know what weight it's going to be. I think they were talking about maybe a 140, or maybe they'll do like a catch weight, like a 142 or something. Because I don't think Manny Pacquiao's fought at weight.
Yeah, he probably can get down there. He's always been quite small, but and he's always kept in shape. But, yeah, I don't know really. It's a tricky one to overthink and that when I always struggle unless I know it's really happening to make my mind up on it. But obviously it's hard to know because Pacquiao, it's hard to know how much he's got left. Sometimes you watch him and he's like he should be retired now and finished, and other times he puts in okay performances of late. So. Yeah, it's a good name, isn't it? You get Pacquiao on your record. It's a good name, and you'd probably say Garcia is probably the favourite because of the youth, and he shows he can take a punch now and recover, and he's got power, and you just don't know what Pacquiao's got left. And it's a great name. But you're right. It's hard to know nowadays if it's a real fight or if it's just an interest gathering. But, so I'm struggling to get really into it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I'm not really that keen. I'm not mad on the fight, to be honest. I'm not. I'd rather sit like Manny Pacquiao's fights are now kind of exhibitions, aren't they? Because he's well past his best. I know he beat Keith Thurman. When was that? Was that like 18 months ago? He beat Keith Thurman, took his WBA strap. And that was a good performance. He put Keith Thurman down, which is it was
yeah,
what?
Yeah, I mean, he's still. I don't think it was quite 18 months. It might have been, and feel that long ago, but you're right. I mean, if they do fight and it's like tomorrow, I'd be quite excited. It's definitely something I'd get up for and watch. But I didn't even get up to watch the Campbell fight. Actually, no, the Campbell fight was not a reasonable time. I didn't watch it though because of something else. What was going on? I think it was a football game on or something. But I would be excited to watch it. But I don't know. Again, I'd rather see him in with Tank or someone like that.
Yeah,
but he's obviously, if it happens, like it's a fight that he sees as an investment and a risk to help his splits when he fights the big boys. If he turns up against Tank and he's got Pacquiao belt, it'll be like 50-50. You know what I mean?
But that just pushes the big fights further and further away. Yeah, Manny Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman was July 20th, 2019. Yeah, so it was almost 18 months ago.
Yeah, well, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, so I don't know. It's funny though, isn't it? Like nobody seems to be talking about Manny Pacquiao and like the level that he's still operating at 41. Like he's got to be on something, hasn't he? Like to be putting in those same kind of performances, still bouncing on the balls of his feet. When your body naturally starts to deteriorate as soon as you get into your late 30s and your natural performance isn't where it was. I don't know.
Yeah. We have to be careful at accusations on YouTube. I know we haven't got the greatest following and the likelihood it's not going to get great. But yeah, I mean, I've always been suspicious with his power and stuff. He's carried his power up. But
yeah. Anyway, we'll swiftly move on. So Caleb Plant beat Caleb Truax in an IBF. I don't know if it was a mandatory defense, but it was a defense of his IBF strap. And it was a complete shutout, 120, 108 on all three scorecards. I only have watched the highlights. I haven't watched the full fight. And yeah, I mean, Caleb Plant just looked pretty much in control, pretty much the whole fight. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if did you see the fight?
I didn't. Actually, it's weird, really. I think because there's not much going on, my looking out for fights has switched off a little bit. I'm forgetting that there's other things on. I only realised, and I will get onto it, but I only realised Stavern was fighting last night, and so I checked a bit of that out. But isn't Plant known as a bit of a hitter, though? Wasn't he expected to get him out of there? Would that be seen as a particularly good result?
I don't think it's set the world alight. I mean, Caleb Truax has really campaigned at middleweight, and when he beat James DeGale, which was about 3 years ago now, I mean, that was a shock defeat. So yeah, I think he would have been expected to maybe stop him to make a little bit of a statement because he is potentially in line to fight Canelo at the back end of this year because he's the other belt holder in super middleweight division. But he's got good combinations. He has a wicked left hook, and he's got that kind of similar kind of stance with the shoulder roll, with quite similar to Floyd Mayweather. He has his front hand sort of down a little bit, and is protecting with his shoulder. He's pretty skillful, but I'm still not kind of like sold on him really. I mean, I know he's a world champion, but I don't know. He's not. I don't see him troubling Canelo, to be honest.
Yeah, and like you say, he needs him if he wants to complete the belts. Which I mean, Hearn's made it. I know we're going to get onto Canelo, but he's made it clear that's his instructions from Canelo. Make me undisputed at super middle.
Yeah, yeah. And then you mentioned Trevor Bryan beat Bermain Stavern. So you've seen this fight. So talk me through it.
I'll be honest, I've not watched it all. I just watched like the first couple of rounds and then the end of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I do cringe a bit when fights like this take place because it was for a belt, for Christ's sake. I know it's for a regular belt, not the main belt, but it was for a belt, and two slow past it overweight fighters. It's on the verge of being embarrassing for boxing actually when that's for a belt.
Is Trevor Bryan old?
And it just shows. I actually don't know how old he is, but he looked old. They just looked out of really out of shape. You know, when they were thudding each other to the belly and that, you could just see all the fat rumbling at the sides, and it's like it just shows that at heavyweight you can just get away with being a lazy bugger. You know what I mean? You don't have to be, keep yourself in particular shape. So, don't know. I mean, the stoppage it wasn't a knockout. It was just like, taking shots. And again, it's a sign that, they weren't in great shape, because it was just, a slow beating towards the end, and, the ref stopped it, and it was no wow factor to it or anything. And you're just like, bloody hell, that's for a belt. So the least said about this, the better, really. And they should just scrap that belt, and then we should probably retire.
And that was a pay-per-view, wasn't it, in America?
Christ, was it?
Yeah, it was. Like, imagine if Frank Warren or Eddie Hearn put that on as pay-per-view. Like, they'd never live it down.
I mean, you must be talking under 10,000 there. Must be under 10,000. You've got over 10,000.
Yeah.
How can that be profitable? I mean, God, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I imagine what it is they've put up the money. Someone's put up some money there to take a big hit, do your conkers, as Hearn would say. But they know that because they've got the belt, they could attract another big fight. But I think you were saying that whoever wins this has to fight Char, don't they?
Yeah, because Manuel Char, I believe, is regular champion in recess, and then when he returns, they'll basically have to fight Manuel Char. It is a bit of a yeah. Anyway, let's swiftly move on from that. Canelo update. Looks like obviously he's fighting Yildirim end of Feb. And then the talks are to be believed it's going to be fighting Billy Joe Saunders on either the 1st or the 8th of May, I believe, which will be the Saturday, and that'll be the Cinco de Mayo celebration weekend. Yeah, I mean, that I am excited for. Canelo versus Billy Joe Saunders. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's another Briton against Canelo, and he has a great record against us, 100% actually. But, yeah. I would like to see Joe have another run out in Feb, but I know it's a risk. I just think he's better when he's had fights under his belt. I will be always going in with Canelo being the favourite in that fight, but I think Billy Joe will probably create more of a wave. I thought the Smith fight, I know he hurt his shoulder and stuff, but I think the Smith fight, after halfway, he knew he couldn't win, and he's just like, I'll just make sure I don't get knocked out here or stopped, and just put up a bit of a fight. Where I think Billy Joe, if he thinks he's losing, he'll try something, and that could get him knocked out. I mean, Hatman's done a video actually, and I kind of agreed with it. He's more of a maverick, Billy Joe, and he's got a bit more fight in him. And I just think he'd be like, if I'm getting beaten up here, I'm gonna absolutely go for it and just try something.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work and I get knocked out, so be it. And I think it'll make more of an entertaining fight, but it does make it more risky that he'll end up getting knocked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I just don't think anyone's up at Canelo's level, and I think Billy Joe. For Billy Joe to have the best chance against Canelo, it would have to be at middleweight. And how he was against Lemieux, that I just don't think he can quite move like that at super. But we'll see. But yeah, really excited and yeah, it'd be a good build up as well, because Billy Joe will be. It was very, any fight with Smith is always a bit of a boring build up because he's just polite and that, and but Joe will be fired up for this, and so all the tricks will be coming out, and it might play a bit of mind games with Canelo. Most people give Canelo a lot of respect, and he may not, so that could be a factor of something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't really thought about that. I wonder if there is going to be a lot of trash talking from Billy Joe Saunders just to try and mix it up a little bit. I can't think of anybody that's really trashed Canelo. It's almost like they're just kind of honoured to be picked to be his opponent, isn't it?
Yeah, and that is a factor people have got to bear in mind. I mean, that's almost what the Klitschko's lived off to some degree. Just this thing of, they've given me a shot, and they just turn up to be almost like an opponent. And that's one thing Fury didn't do. He turned up and was, I'm here to win. And, so So there could be an angle there, but you know, we'll see. I'm sure Mayweather trash talked Canelo a bit, but obviously that was a long time ago.
Yeah, and that was when Canelo was still, I think he was the B-side for that as well. But yeah.
But I imagine Billy Joe will love the limelight and really get in on it, and he'll. I mean, Canelo looks a cool customer, so I'm not sure how much it will ruffle him, kind of thing. But I think it'd be entertaining, and then it will build the fight up more, and then you know, we'll see. And I do think Billy Joe will be cautious, but I think if he feels he's getting beat, he'll go out on his shield. He'll try something.
Yeah, I mean, the closest thing that Canelo has had to a real rivalry where there's potential trash talking is with Golovkin. I think Golovkin's kind of, you know, thrown a few sort of shades Canelo's way, and he is a cool customer. Like, he just doesn't take the bait. He basically just says, I've got no comment, or I've got nothing to say about it, and it just nullifies it. And he is just laser-like focus on, you know, the job in hand, and that is the thing, isn't it? You just can't see. Yeah, I mean, even if it would be interesting though if we could see somebody kind of ruffle his feathers a little bit in the build-up and maybe show a little bit of disrespect.
Yeah, I mean, if he comes in a Batman suit, what will Canelo do?
I'd like to see that. For sure. Other news: Warrington has vacated the IBF featherweight strap so that he can pursue this fight. He's got a tune-up this month, and then obviously he's going in for Kanzu in April, I believe, is when they're aiming for, end of April. And then Gary Russell Jr. So he's obviously looking for the big fights now, because I don't know how much longer Warrington's going to go on for, maybe another couple of years. And it's basically to avoid fighting his mandatory, which looks like it's going to be Kid Galahad. I heard as well Kid Galahad is signing with PBC. Did you hear about this?
I know he's fallen out with Hearn a bit. Yeah. It's a bit of a strange one, because Kid Galahad, you know, has already fought for the IBF and got beat, and it was a tight fight. It was an awful fight, if you remember it. It wasn't a great fight. And so for me, because of that, I know the IBF have put him back in, but I'm kind of like, I've got less sympathy for you. And I think at first that he'd taken step aside money, so Warrington could fight for the unification, and then it got delayed again, and he was like, right, well, I want to fight in between. And then Kid Galahad went, well, no, you're not defending it even for that fight. And I think he fell out a bit with Eddie Hearn, and then he said, like, oh well, if Joshua has to fight his defenses and Canelo has to fight mandatories, then you should have to. I'm like, it's not the same thing really, because he had signed to fight in a unification, and that's still going on. It's just been moved slightly, so it's not really the same point. And I actually think it's what Warrington's done. He's almost gone, right, well, I think it's backfired potentially for Kid Galahad now, because he hasn't got any step aside money, and he has to now fight someone for the IBF, and I don't know who that is.
I think it's going to be Jazza Dickens.
And that ain't going to be for big money, I thought.
No, it won't be.
Not going to be for great money in that. So
now,
if he wins it, he's got a chance of good money. Yeah, probably, yeah. But again, it's an opportunity for a belt for him, so fair enough. But I think it was the right decision if they were putting him into that corner, as long as, you know, hopefully they've made sure that fight for what's the other belt that Katsu's got?
I think Kanzu. God, no, you're asking. I'll have to double check.
But as long as that doesn't hamper that deal, because originally that fight was for unification, and now it's not.
Well, I think they'll have a deal in place. But Warrington, you know, he's a big draw at the featherweight division, because he, you know, and this really, it only happens when there's fans. Like, he has a huge following in Leeds, obviously. Featherweight. Yeah, so Kanzu is the WBA. So he's the regular champion, according to this, anyway. And Leo Santa Cruz is the super champion. So
So yeah, it's. I think it's good in a way. For fans, it's good because I don't want to see the Kid Galahad fight again. It was awful, and I'd rather see him fight, a better opponent and move on that way. Really.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree.
I mean,
Talking of the,
do you remember the?
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, go on. No,
sorry. Talking of the Eddie Hearn interview, he mentioned he's looking to schedule a pay-per-view card in April. And since I listened to that, I'm just racking my brains to kind of think of who that could be. I know they've been talking about Chisora fighting Joseph Parker, provided he gets through Junior Farr. But I can't think of anybody else because it's obviously not going to be Dillian White. Won't be Joshua. Who else is going to be?
I get the feeling. I get the feeling it's going to be not the strongest headline, but a very strong card all the way through.
Mm.
So I think it could be like a Chisora Parker, which you'd say is a very, very weak pay-per-view headline, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
With Parker's kind of not got any big wins recently, and Chisora was on pay-per-view last, but he's lost. So that's a very weak pay-per-view headline.
Weak. That's not pay-per-view.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is when you look at that shit that was on last night. But then if you stick in, I've heard they want to do some stuff with Salons in April. So if they stick in Eubank in an interesting fight, and they stick in, Hrgovic, and then Katie Taylor's on this, I think it's going to look like that. I think it's going to be a very weak headline with what would be a very, very strong undercard. A stronger than normal undercard for pay-per-view, but then a weak cherry on top almost.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you'll end up with. I think there'll be five fights. It'd be like, oh, that's good. And when you add them all up, you're like, I can see why it's pay-per-view. The danger of it is that, does it bring in the casual fans? But I think for me and you, we'll be like, that's a good night of boxing. I'll pay for that.
Yeah. Chris Eubank Jr. That's a good shout out.
I can't think.
They're looking to do something with him. If you're the Sowlands, who would you put Chris Eubank Jr. in with next?
I mean, it's your first fight with him, so you don't put in it too risky. But there's the dilemma if you want it to be pay-per-view. So you don't want to. You want a settler, really.
Yeah.
But it can't be like a joke. Yeah.
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Them 2 fought before?
No. Don't believe so. No, they haven't. No.
Yeah, so that'd be good. Yeah, Katie Taylor in a big fight. That would be
John Ryder, or maybe even Jamie Cox. Because I don't think he hasn't done anything for a while, has he?
Yeah. Who did he fight in the? Who was Eubank's first? Oh no. I don't think who his first fight was in that tournament, but I think I'm getting confused with
Yildirim. He fought Yildirim.
But then if you had Hrgovic versus what's his name?
You're on fire tonight, Rick. Hrgovic.
Lena. Yeah. Against Melina, not Melina. Hrgovic versus. Who's the
Martin Piccoli.
Piccoli, yeah. See again. That's a good one. And then you throw a bit of Savage in, Babic.
Yeah, the Savage. Yeah, and then
you can see how they could piece it together.
Yeah.
Some of the parts.
Yeah, I quite like Eubank versus John Ryder or Jamie Cox. I think that'd be interesting. Good first fight back, and then maybe try and push for a world title tilt somewhere. Yeah, okay, interesting. Well, I guess time will tell. And then obviously there's talk of, just staying with the middleweights. I think Demetrius Andrade and Liam Williams are going to go to purse bids for the WBO middleweight title defense for Andrade. And it looks like he's going to go to purse bids, and it will be Eddie Hearn bidding against Frank Warren again, which will be quite interesting. But it's funny,
That's
actually.
What we like, a little bit of spice.
Yeah, well, they had made it pretty clear that they were not interested in taking that Liam Williams fight. They were even talking about relinquishing the belt. But I think that was on the premise that they were going to be able to get the Billy Joe Saunders fight. But now it looks like he's taking Canelo fight. There isn't any more talk of Triple G and Andrade, which tells me Andrade versus either Jaime Munguia is going to be quite likely. And then, Andrade is basically going to be forced to take on his mandatory, which is not good for him, really. He really, really needs a big fight, Andrade. Needs a big fight. But he just seems to be very avoided. It's a real problem. But yeah. And then the last fight we wanted to talk about was Usyk versus Joyce. I think it was a Sam Jones interview I watched a few days ago, where they're in talks, and it looks like a fight could be announced in the next week or two, and that will be for the interim WBO title, and then obviously it'll be elevated after Tyson and Joshua have fought their first fight, and then obviously the belts become fragmented. But yeah, Usyk versus Joyce. I'm really intrigued on that fight, actually, if that does happen.
Well, they fought in the amateurs, didn't they? And well, not the amateurs, in that kind of mid-range amateur and pro
WBSS.
tournament.
Yeah.
So but I think it's another level now, and it's improved, and I'd still lean towards Usyk. Still relatively heavily, but I wouldn't say Joyce hasn't got a shout. But yeah, be interesting, and it will be probably on BT pay-per-view, I'd have thought.
Yeah.
And apparently they're also negotiating a longer contract with BT and Frank Warren. Yeah. So you can see Warren's now leaning to kind of Joyce to be his kind of lead. Now that's happened to do.
I don't think he's got anybody else, has he?
Yeah. No, other than Fury, but again, so that'd be a great fight to have, and it'd be good if they can announce that soon. It's an interesting one with Usyk, because it's like, is he getting any step aside money now? It doesn't sound like he is. It's almost like the WBA have just gone. WBO have just gone. We want that belt as part of the big, the Fury Joshua fight. And I still don't understand yet is the winner of the Usyk and Joyce, do they get given the belt once, after the Joshua Fury fight, or does the winner of that have to fight someone else? Because really, if they're doing what they're doing, they should really just say, listen, the winner of this will become the champion the day after that fight, the day after because you'd think if they're very close to announcing, the Joyce Usyk fight will happen before Joshua Fury. So it's almost like that might take place in May. Say like Usyk wins, it's great, he's won. And then the day after the AJ Fury fight, that belt goes to him. I think that's quite fair, to be honest.
I'm not 100% sure on how it works. I think each governing body has their own rules. I recall when Tyson Fury beat Vladimir Klitschko and won all the belts, the IBF hit Tyson Fury with, your mandatory is, I think it was Glasgow or somebody like that. And Tyson Fury was like, well, I've got a rematch clause, and the IBF were like, yeah, and this is the person you've got to fight. If you don't fight, then we're going to strip you. So then Tyson Fury had no choice but to to lose the IBF belt, and then that was when Glasgow fought Charles Martin for the vacant belt, and then Martin won with the Glasgow injury.
Was Glasgow given the belt, or was the winner of that fight given?
It was basically Glasgow was mandatory, but then he had to fight the number 2, which was Charles Martin, for the vacant belt. But that's IBF rules. I don't know what.
Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I'd like them to give the belt to the winner of Joyce and Usyk the following week, and then it's theirs to defend after that.
Yeah, I think
I'd like to see.
It's nice to see them win it in the ring, isn't it? And they're presented with it in the ring.
It is, but I think, you know, the fact that the WBO have really done Joshua in that favour and probably shat a little bit on Usyk here, all for the glory of the undisputed. I think I'd have no issues if they just gave it to whoever won that fight a few weeks later, because really that fight should be for a belt.
Yeah, it deserves to, I think.
Okay.
So you pick it,
but yeah, great. Again,
you'd pick Usyk in that fight
at the moment, and I think I'd give Usyk about the same chance as maybe even a stronger chance than I gave against Chisora. And the reason is I've now seen him in against a proper heavyweight, and I know Joyce is a bit bigger, probably better jab, but I just think he's, you know, I've got less question marks against Usyk now, and you know, and Joyce is slow. I know he got the jab off against Dubois, and that's how he basically won the fight with that jab. But you're not going to do that against Usyk as much. He's been moving around far too much. So I think he takes away that weapon and he just kills him. I think it'll go to points.
Yeah.
I think it's inevitable to go to
points. Because if you take, you know, Usyk isn't a big puncher and Joyce has got a granite chin. Like Daniel Dubois cracked Joyce hard, and he barely moved.
Yeah.
I actually don't think anybody's knocking Joyce out, actually. Even, you know, some of the bigger punchers in the division.
No, I mean, you could see him getting stopped on his feet, taking too much damage. But yeah, I know what you mean. Bit of a Marius whack.
All right. Okay. So what's the next video? We need to talk about what we're going to do. What's the next fight?
You've not done the big one.
Oh, AJ.
The reason you've got the reason the video and your screenshot, you plonker.
Yeah, AJ Fury. It looks like June, and it's going to be in Riyadh. And I mean, it doesn't get bigger than this. I can't think. I mean, what would you, if this fight does come off, what would you compare it to? Lewis Tyson?
Well, it depends. Well, yeah, probably, but it's different things for different people. So for us Brits, it's probably bigger than it's probably bigger than Tyson Lewis for us Brits. Only for the world, not sure. Definitely for America.
Yeah.
For America, it's smaller.
Yeah.
For Britain, it's marginally bigger, and for the world, question mark. But it's huge.
I actually think it's bigger than Tyson Lewis, and that might sound ridiculous, but when Lewis fought Tyson in, I think it was 2001, like most people knew that Mike Tyson had lost a few, he was fading badly, and I think most people knew that Lennox Lewis was going to, you know, run through him. You know, there wasn't as many question marks on that fight as there is on this one. This is a real clash in styles, and you could argue, you'd have to say they're kind of in their peak, would you say? Peak of their powers?
Around it, both of them, yeah. I mean, the only thing that's slightly missing, and it's Joshua's fault, is that if he hadn't have got beaten, because then it'd be two undefeated fighters as well.
Yes.
You can't quite say that.
Off it, yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's big enough, and it's interesting on that video with her. They were asking how many buys they think it did, and he went. Oh, I mean, and considering, I think the highest UK. This is for UK buys. I think the highest UK number is Joshua Klitschko at 1.2.
Right.
1.2, 1.3. I think Hatton Mayweather was quite close to that as well, which is impressive considering the time it was on at. But he goes, oh, it clears 2. It clears 2 million, which I think he's right. And then he just goes, oh, fuck it. It clears 3.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't know. But it clears 2. It clears 2. Because it's going to be in the UK, it's going to be front page.
Yeah.
It's going to be front page. It'll be like when England's not like, maybe when it's announced it's back pages and they might, but you know, the day before, it's going to be front page.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah.
That's just going to drive the numbers. Like people that don't even normally get pulled in will get pulled in, and yeah. So easily 2 million, 3, not sure, possibly. I mean, I'd love to see what the deal is, because it'll all be about percentages and upsides, but it'd be interesting to see where the upside kicks in and what their estimates are. Because I think it's a hard one to predict. I think it could go, well, definitely over 2, but the upper end could be 3 or 4, the upper end.
Yeah.
You know.
Really could. It really could. And who are you sort of leaning towards at the moment?
How I've been stuck on it for a while, really. I lean towards Fury, but it's not a strong lean.
Yeah.
I think it's a very tight fight. I think you can make arguments for both. I just think that I can see there's just more, in my eyes, there's more chances of there's more ways that the way I see it basically is if Fury boxes the Klitschko fight, he's got a very good chance of winning.
Yeah.
If he fights the Wilder fight, it probably leans slightly towards Joshua.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, it's very close.
Yeah.
So he's got 2 ways where he's got a very good chance of winning, in my eyes. But yeah, I actually just think Joshua is going to come along and go, I'm going to be prepared for anything.
Yeah.
And it's up to Tyson to do what he wants to do. And Joshua will have to go, right, if we're going to have a fight, that's natural for me. But if he wants me to chase him, then I can do that as well. But yeah, I think I'm kind of 60-40, 55-45 at the moment to Fury. It's just only a slight lean. Psychologically, he is a bit more
mentally stronger.
Probably strong. But don't know. He, you know, Joshua. Neither have got a brilliant chin. I think. You know, I know. Joshua's been down twice and against Andy Ruiz, but he was never out of it. But Fury goes down quite easily. He just gets up and doesn't stay down.
Yeah.
Just don't know. It's really hard to see how it goes because, you know, I rewatched some of the first few rounds of the Fury Wilder fight the other day, and I was just looking at it, and you can see the way he fought will obviously cause anyone trouble, but Fury was open to be hit with stuff if you had a more dynamic fighter.
Yeah.
I think he's there for the uppercut all day.
Fury.
Yeah.
He is.
Has
he ever been cracked clean? I don't think Fury, like all of his knockdowns that he's had, like Steve Cunningham, Wilder, they weren't like clean on the chin and down like a sack of spuds. I don't think. I know that
I think he was quite clean.
The 12th round.
I thought no, Cunningham was quite clean.
I don't know. I just
overhand right, wasn't it? Or overhand right.
Yeah. I remember him. I remember
that was a clean crack, but obviously.
I remember watching it, and
don't know. I mean, he just has good powers of recovery.
Yeah,
he has good powers of recovery, and he knows what to do when he's hurt. So you could see him getting caught off Joshua easily. I mean, I'll be surprised if both of them don't go through difficulty.
Yeah,
I'll be really surprised. And this is where I get like frustrated sometimes because people seem to be either in one camp or the other.
Yeah,
they don't seem to have this thing. They seem to have a respect for the other side. And for me, it's like I can see how either of them. on the fence. I will pick a winner at the moment, but I'm not overconfident. And I can totally see my winner at the moment would be Fury, but I can totally see how that could come unstuck. And I actually think both will go through difficult times.
Yeah.
I just think Fury again has got a little bit more savvy in when he's in trouble.
Yeah.
And I can see if Johnson gets in trouble, I think one of his problems is he tenses up and tires out, where Fury seems to kind of be able to get through it, remaining relaxed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's absolutely intriguing. We'll be talking weeks in advance, and things might be changing our minds and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah. No, it's big. It doesn't get any bigger than this.
Get to go up.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. All right. Well, I guess plenty of time to talk about it, and we can do predictions nearer the time. What are we going to do next week? We need to talk about what's the next fight. We need to do a prediction, don't we? I'm just getting the schedule.
I think the first fight in the I think the first fight in the UK isn't until like 2 weeks' time, like the 14th or something.
Okay, yeah, that is Kelly Avanesian. Kelly Avanesian. Is that right?
So we're 2 weeks. We need to do. We might have to do a prediction for that next week.
Yeah, we'll do prediction for that next week, and then let's do some. We'll do some more news.
Yeah.
We've been talking about doing a pound for pound as well for about a month.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Do you know what the
Get
problem
around
is?
to it. But we may have had
Go on.
So we may as well. We may next week have an actual fight signed, as in Usyk and
Joyce.
Joyce. Fingers crossed. We'll see.
Okay, so we'll do news, and then let's try and do a pound for pound. Then we can do a prediction on Kelly Avanesian.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Done.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe.